answer the question I often get: should I put my GPA on the resume? So a lot of students, maybe their GPA isn't as high as they hoped, or it's not what they expected, and they're worried about that. So I'm going to address that, as well as some other considerations and special circumstances that I often have seen as a career counselor myself. So the first thing I want to do is tell you what is the difference between a cumulative GPA and your InMajor GPA. Now, your cumulative GPA is all the classes you've taken. It's everything that you've done in college, including those maybe general education courses, or anything that you have to do to satisfy some core requirements. And then all those classes, including those in your major or minor, will be calculating your cumulative GPA. And employers often refer to that as your GPA. Then there's your InMajor GPA, and the InMajor GPA is just those classes that you have in your major that satisfy your major's requirements. So a lot of times people hopefully are studying something they're good at and they enjoy. That GPA in major is actually higher than your cumulative. So what is the general rule of thumbs for GPAs on the resume? Everyone's going to have a different opinion. I'm going to give you mine. You should always check with your college or your university to see what their career office recommends. But what I usually recommend is if your GPA is a 3.0 or higher, you should put it on the resume. That's a solid B. And if you don't have a 3.0, or you have a 3.0 and you don't put it on your resume, I should say, it's going to be assumed that it's less than a B. You have less than a 3.0. By omission, the assumption is that you don't have that. And I have an example of how that would look, and I'll show that in a moment. Resume with the GPA on here, it's over a 3.0, and it's directly to the right of where your expected degree is. So let's say your GPA is really high, like 3.4 or above. You might want to consider bolding that resume and actually putting it to the left justified side of the resume so it really stands out. You should also include anytime you made the dean's list, you have any honors or scholarships, almost always you want to include those on there to highlight your academic achievements. So I have an example of that as well. GPA is bolded and it appears on the left justified side of the resume. Let's talk about the InMajor GPA. That InMajor GPA, if it is significantly higher than your overall or cumulative, I think it's a good idea to also include that. It shows that you're really doing well in your subject matter that you're majoring in, and it can be very appealing, especially if you're applying for a job where your major and your education from that major will be relevant to the position or to the internship. So that you can put on your resume as well. But I would only do it again if it's significantly higher. So say you have a 3.4 GPA and your InMajor GPA is also a 3.4, I don't think I would bother. But if it is higher, like a 3.54 or something like that, I would add that InMajor GPA to your resume. And this resume, because it is higher than the cumulative. So I have a link to a GPA calculator in the description box below. I suggest you check it out if you need any help calculating in a major GPA. Obviously, the question why probably a lot of you are on this video is, what if my GPA is below a 3.0? So I want to address that question. If it's under a 3.0, I always recommend trying to calculate that InMajor GPA. If it's higher, like I said, anything a 3.0 or above, I definitely would consider putting that InMajor GPA onto your resume. Your GPA onto your resume without your cumulative GPA. You can see the InMajor GPA is right here. I put it next to the marketing major to kind of highlight that it's part of your marketing major, and it puts the emphasis more on the education degree you're receiving rather than the GPA itself. I would also include any scholarships. A lot of times students get some scholarships from their high school when they graduate. Maybe it's just a one-time thing. I would put that on there. It shows academic merit. It shows that you were a good student. And, one might just assume, okay, so maybe the student isn't showing his GPA. He's a freshman or sophomore, or he had a rough start in college, or maybe this person really has great work ethic or is working a lot of jobs to pay for school. But I think putting the InMajor, if possible, if that InMajor is a 3.0 or above, and or the scholarship. So I have an example. I'm going to show you in a bit of a resume without a GPA on it, but some scholarship. GPA on there because it's below a 3.0, and the InMajor GPA is also below a 3.0. So what we included was a high school scholarship the student received, and we put it on there, and that helps to show, again, that that student is a good student, maybe off to a rough start. Okay, so another situation is you are a transfer student. You've transferred from one college or university to another. And in that first semester of school, you actually don't have a GPA with that new institution. So I recommend, again, you put your GPA from your previous schooling on your resume, if it is a 3.0 or above, listing that institution. So it shows that you had started college, and you got a good grades, and then, now you're somewhere else. So I have an example of that for you to see as well for a transfer student in the first semester at his or her new institution. Shows how you have the two institutions. You've transferred from Strive More University to Wish for A's College, and we've shown that on the resume. We're including your GPA from your previous institution here, but you don't have a GPA yet for Wish for A's College yet. Okay, my next example I want to talk about is for graduate students in the first semester. If you are a brand new graduate student in your first semester of school, you do not have a GPA at all. So you're sort of in the same boat as the transfer student. You want to show any previous institutions and degrees you have. That will be on the lower part of your education section, and then your current expected degree program should be above on the top. And I do have an example of that as well. And her previous institution, and the GPA as an undergrad was a 3.35 cumulative. And then here we see the Masters of Science. This is the first semester, so there's no GPA yet for this graduate student, and that's how we show it on the resume. So the last scenario, actually I have one more scenario, I thought I was done, but what if your school has no GPA calculations or grades? Lucky you, I think. I would still include any honors, scholarships. You should also think about any competitions you've done in school that you won, or anything where you've really stood out above and beyond either inside or outside of the classroom. That could be something else that you'd want to include there. Okay, so that's all I have to say about GPAs. I do have a tip sheet with examples of how you would present your GPA on the education section of a resume. It's a two-sided document, so feel free to look for that in the description box below. You can download it, take a look at your own situation, use some of that as guidance for you. And then I also have that GPA calculator as well. But I always do recommend you talk to your career services office at your own school to get some specific guidance on your situation if you need that. Thank you so much for watching. I plan to release new videos on a regular basis to help you as a student kind of go from the class to your career. Thank you. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks. Bye-bye.